Hey everybody, how you doing? I wanted to come in tonight because I don't want to stop our forward momentum. We did a little bit of reading this morning from Genesis 21, and I want to go ahead and get this finished tonight instead of doing this tomorrow. So we will go ahead and continue on with this tonight. Ask you to forgive my neighbors who are outside pre-gaming for the 4th of July. So you may hear some pop, pop, pop along the way. They are young people having a good time, minding their business, and I'm a man. Um, 4th of July comes once a year, and oh, young people, children. So, anywho, we are going to pick up where we have been, where we left off. This morning, we read about uh, the birthing of Yitzhak. I believe it was this morning. We talked about that, and we're gonna take a minute to do some reading, and we're just going to do what we do: go through, do our reading. As some things occur as we're reading along, we will. I may share some things from some of the stuff that I just went to look at to just take another look at it. Um, there are some topics in each of the chapters. I believe, as we've been reading, you can see there are topics along the way that kind of make you want to. If you're someone who loves studying, it makes you want to, take a side glance and go check it out. Maybe study out a Hebrew word or phrase, or look at some cross-reference scriptures and see, where those things are talked about, or even, scriptures that are related to other Bible stories that are related to what we're talking about. And, I will stop what I'm doing to go and do that. And so I encourage you to do the same. You know, um, the scriptures tell us that the word of Elohim is quick and powerful, sharper than any two-edged sword, piercing even to the dividing asunder of soul and spirit, joint and marrow. And so that word is very alive. It is very active. It has and it has life. Um, and the scriptures are interesting. And as I've said before, it's kind of like drinking water. Once you start, the more you do, the more you want to do. The more it's intriguing. The stories are interesting. And so I titled this evening's reading, "The Promise and the Drama Continues," because we do have the promise that we saw of a child born to Abraham and to Sarah, even in their old age. They were able to produce the promise because the Father said so. Okay, and because the Father said they would, the Father said that was what was to happen for them. And when the Lord has spoken on a situation, you can count on that promise. And they were able to, as we talked about this morning, actually possess the promise. And so I agreed this morning to stand in agreement with those of you that are, believing the Father for some things. You got some things up in prayer, and you are, believing, trusting and believing, you're obeying. And I stand in agreement with those things which have been promised to you. Um, Believing that we're going to continue praying until you're holding it in your hand, until you have that promise in your hand. We're going to continue to believe and not doubt, to encourage one another, to continue to hold on and to believe, not grow weary in the well doing of doing well, but also in the well doing of like waiting and trusting and being patient and allowing the Father's timing to play out in all of your situations. So we're going to read a little bit here because once the promise comes, there's still things to be done. There's still a work to be done. There's still situations to encounter and work through. And boy, do they have a situation. Because before we get started with this, you're going to remember we read a few chapters back about the birth of a child that was, man's attempt to make happen what the Father said would happen. The promise that Abraham had received, that he would be the father of many nations. Time is ticking. Biological clocks have frozen. Because remember, these are very old people by this time. So biological clocks have stopped ticking. They have run clean out, and yet, they were yet without child. And so Sarah makes the decision to allow her husband to impart into. It's after 10. I don't have to be PG, but we're going to be for wisdom's sake. To impart into her handmaid, and they produce a son by the name of Ishmael, and created some drama. And the drama continues in tonight's reading. And so we're going to go ahead and get started. And like I said, we may stop a few places along the way, but overwhelmingly, we're just going to be reading. So Genesis 21, and the child grew and was weaned, and that child there is Isaac, or for those of you who are learning the Hebrew along with us, Yishkak. We're going to look at that in a minute because we didn't look at that this morning because we were kind of moving for the sake of time. So we're going to stop just for a second to just look at some things. It says, and the child grew and was weaned, and Abraham made a great feast the same day that Yitzchak was weaned. And I assumed, when you know a little bit enough to be dangerous, you think you know things. And so I was like, oh, feast, that's going to be Chag. And it wasn't, it was a different word, which, means a similar thing. Feast, banquet, uh, basically a party in honor of the child reaching the age where he was old enough to, that word there, weaned, meaning kind of similar to what we mean when we say wean. Generally, that means the child has come off the bottle or off, it's no longer breastfeeding. For this weaned is, the child that reached the age where, they're able to do some things themselves. So we know we're not dealing with a brand new newborn, but we are dealing with a small child. Says verse 9, and Sarah saw the son of Hagar the Egyptian, which she had born unto Abraham, mocking. So here we're talking about Ishmael. Sarah sees Ishmael kind of mocking. We're going to have to assume in regards to the new baby. And if you're a new mom, if you're an old mom, I don't think you have to be a new mom to be concerned about your child and be concerned about your child's safety. And so Sarah knows that when it comes down to inheritance, and they've been given a big promise. They've been given promise of what was to happen with this son of theirs, and Sarah's not taking any chances. She sees this. She sees this other child, older child. We think probably about 14, just based on how old Abraham was when Ishmael was born, and how old he was when Yitzchak is born. Isaac is born, and so we know he's probably at least 14, probably in that at that age. Wherefore she says unto Abraham, cast out this bondwoman and her son, for the son of this bondwoman shall not be heir with my son, even with Yitzchak. And um, culturally, um, the oldest has that entitlement to, certain things, and she knows that this is going to be a problem for her son. It's already a problem now because she sees the mocking happening. So she knows as they get older, it's going to become more and more of an issue where, there are, in most cultures, rules concerning inheritance. And for that oldest son, certain things being expected to be an inheritance. And so we know, she knows that if both of these young men grow of age in the same home, that inheritance issue is going to become a problem. And we see we're still dealing with that inheritance issue so many years later. So she was right at this point. Verse 11 says, and the thing was very grievous in Abraham's sight because of his son. Okay, that's his child. That is his son, even though it's not the son of his wife. That is his son. And so he is concerned about it. But he gets a word of comfort from the Lord and says, and Elohim said unto Abraham, let it not be grievous in thy sight because of the lad and because of thy bondwoman. In all that Sarah has said unto thee, hearken unto her voice, for in Yitzchak shall thy seed be called. And also of the son of the bondwoman will I make a nation because he is thy seed. So I'm going to bless him, like the promise, that was connected to you, that I gave you, that we are in covenant about. It's not coming through that son, but I'm going to bless him because he is your son. I'm going to keep my word through your sons. And this other son is going to be blessed as well. But the son that was promised name of Isaac in English, and we're English speakers, so we don't have any problem with calling him Isaac. But if you are learning Hebrew along with us, the name is Yitzchak. If you're going to try to pronounce that, yeah, sounds like Yitzchak. And there are a couple of meanings when you start to look into the dictionaries and the lexicons. There are a couple, and they're both very similar. One is laughter, that is mockery. The other is he will laugh. And so just depends where you are in the verses, which when his name is mentioned, which one of these meanings is inferred. Um, so that is that. Genesis 21, verse 14 says, "And Abraham rose up early in the morning and took bread and a bottle of water and gave it unto Hagar, putting it on her shoulder and the child, and sent her away. And she departed and wandered in the wilderness of Beersheba." And I just can't help, like, mentally the thought being a bottle of water, when in fact it says if he put it on her shoulder, it was carried on her shoulder. So more than likely it's a large vessel of water. But in my mind, I keep getting the picture of this woman with this loaf of bread and this bottle, the little plastic bottles of water that we have. But I'm certain that there was more water than that, and so it's more than likely one of those larger water bottles, the skin ones that were common in those times. It says, "In the water was spent in the bottle. So eventually she runs out and she cast the child under one of the shrubs. And she went and sat her down over against him a good way off, as it were a bow shot. For she said, Let me not see the death of the child. And she sat over against him and lifted up her voice and wept. And Elohim heard the voice of the lad, and the angel of Elohim called to Hagar out of heaven and said unto her, What aileth thee, Hagar? Fear not, for Elohim hath heard the voice of the lad where he is." That was always interesting to me, as a parent, and encouragement, I believe, as a parent. And many times, having been a single mother myself and not trying to put myself in the story, but simply, I believe there are principles that we can take from stories. I don't put yourself in the place of the person. You can't do that. This scripture meant what it meant, and the conversation was actually had with her. So he's speaking specifically to her. But I believe there are principles and different things that we can apply as wisdom for us. And it says here that he heard the cry of the child. And there's something, I believe, in being concerned about the welfare of your child, and really thinking about the child that the Lord gave you to steward. They're not yours, they're his. And stewardship of our children is important, and being concerned about our children is important, and doing the things that we need to do to cover and care for our children. I can simply say in my life, I know that when you make decisions considering the welfare of those children that are attached to your life, and again, because I was single, I didn't have another partner to be concerned about those moves. Um, a- all the decisions were on me. And so, but what I found was as I made decisions about employment, as I made decisions about where we would live, when I always was more concerned about the impact on my child than on me, the Father always blessed. He always made a way. He always looked out for us, because I believe the Father is very particular about how we treat children. And so it was interesting to me when I'm reading this and it says that, look, what's wrong with you? Don't be afraid, because I've heard the voice of the lad. And he says, hath heard the voice of the lad where he is. Arise, lift up the lad and hold him in thine hand, for I will make him a great nation. And Elohim opened her eyes, and she saw a well of water. And she went and filled the bottle with water and gave the lad drink. Now, I don't know if that well of water was there already, but what I can say is sometimes when you're going through what you're going through, you can become so focused on the go through that you don't see the provision has already been made. Like there is a well of water already there within eyesight of where she is. But sometimes when we're going through what we're going through, and she's laid this baby down under this bush and left him a little distance from her because she didn't want to watch him die. Meanwhile, right within her line of vision, there is water, there is a well. And it says, but the father had to open her eyes so that she could see it. And she saw a well of water. And she went and filled the bottle with water and gave the lad drink. So before I move on, I want to encourage you. Usually in the mornings, we talk about these, and it's something to think about as you go through your day. But I want you, as you're preparing for bed, or if it's late night and you're on your way to work, however it is that you're about to carry on after we get done with this reading today, one thing I want you to think about is, what perspective are you putting your issues and circumstances in? Are they right in front of you and they're so close to you that you can't see breakthrough coming? You can't see deliverance is right in front of you. You can't see deliverance is just a few steps down the road. Deliverance and change and turnaround and a total shift could just be a little bit down the way, but you just have to continue in the race. You have to continue pressing. You have to continue with that desire. I'm going to make it. I'm going to live. The Father's going to carry me through this situation. It's going to work in my favor. I'm not being selfish. I'm considering, this child the Father has gave me. I'm concerned about the things that is concerned. The scriptures say He is concerned about the things that concern us, the things that He contends with, those things that contend with us. And so, if the Father is concerned, and I'm doing my best to please Him, then I can trust that He's going to give me the wisdom, the strategy, whatever it is that I need for that situation to turn around. But I have to make sure that I'm not focused on the issue, the problem, the pain, more than I'm focused on the one who is the breakthrough, the one who is the deliverance, the one who is the way maker. That's where my focus has to be. Because if I'm not careful, I can kind of be in the situation that she's in, where I'm so overwhelmed. I've been abandoned. I've been cast out. I've been thrown away. And the resources that we were provided with, they've run out. We're just going to die. No, because if you just look the other way, there's a well of water that's going to sustain you until such a time as you're able to walk and move and do the things that you need to do. And the scriptures here, verse 20 says, the father did exactly what he said. And Elohim was with the lad, and he grew and dwelt in the wilderness and became an archer. And he dwelt in the wilderness of Paran, and his mother took him a wife out of the land of Egypt. So his wife was where she was from. And so we talk about Middle East, Middle East, Middle East, Middle East a lot. And it's interesting to me how often the scriptures are very specific about where people are from, but we kind of put people in the categories and places that we want them to be. And so, although Abraham is his father, Ishmael's mother is Egyptian and his wife is Egyptian. Just saying. So we move on to the next story. That story, we've made it through that first portion. Because remember, I told you this verse had story. This chapter had stories that I thought were really key and significant to really get their own time and not just to be rushed into the 15-minute reading that we do in the morning. Yes, you can just run through it and be able to check off the box to say that, yes, indeed, I have read my scriptures for today. Or I recommend taking a slower paced, purposeful walk through the scriptures that allows you to stop, branch it off, study out some words, make sure you really understand. Because one of the things that I'm finding really interesting in a lot of the spaces that I see online where people are discussing and debating scriptures is comprehension of the English. I know many times we really do, and I'm one who's studying Hebrew, so I really do enjoy it. And I know there are people who have studied out Greek. There are people with degrees in these areas, so they really understand those things. But I think it's really key to make sure that you're understanding it in the English first. Because if you've got a misunderstanding in the English and you start dabbling around with the other languages, you will go to those languages with the perception, comprehension, and understanding that you have. And so if your understanding in the language that is common to us is off, you're going to take that off into your other language. And you'll find something like a Strong's that'll give you like 80 different 80 different possible meanings of a word. And you'll just find the one that you think goes there. Even though like regular English comprehension will have you looking at it and saying, yeah, that's probably not what that means. And then if you're not skilled with the other languages and understanding usage, understanding the different the different verb classes. You will grab something and you will be running with a doctrine, running with a teaching, because you saw a word that's actually from the translation that we have, based on a root word, probably may not even be the exact word exactly the way that you see it. It could just be that they're showing you the root of that word to kind of help with understanding. Um, or like I said, we'll get those 87 5011 um, usages that Strong's will show you, and you'll just pick the one that you like, or pick the one whether it was how it was used in that particular verse or not. And so I encourage you to go a little further than just Strong's. Get you a good lexicon, get you a good Hebrew dictionary, get you a good credible, um, you know, tool to help with translating and transliterating, so that you kind of have some have some reasoning for the things that you believe the scriptures are saying. But it helps to understand in the English. I love King James, and I keep saying I'm going to switch up what I'm using on these, um, because the King James can be complicated for people. I love the poetry of the King James, but I know for some it may make it difficult, and so I may be switching up. We'll see, we'll see. But for today, we're in this King James. Hello. All right. Verse 22. It's so we slid over into a second story. This story, Abraham has been really blessed since he left out all the way back in chapter 12. He's been really blessed since he's obeyed, the word of the Lord, left his country, his people, and his father's house. And then once he fully obeys and separates from Lot, the father, reaffirms this covenant for him. And he's just been really, really blessed. But he ended up in the situation with Lot because they had been so blessed. And everywhere they go, the people end up blessing them. And the father moves on the heart of people to be a blessing to them. And this person who he's having interaction with now, like, put him out with some stuff and said, "Look, go out in my land and hang out wherever you want. You and this wife that was so beautiful that I wanted her. But the Lord dealt with me because I had her in my house." And so he had to give him back. Take your woman and go. But anyway, I'm being goofy. But we're about to see another interaction with them where they have to make an agreement on where they're going to settle and who owns what. Because when the Lord has blessed you, you have so much that then you have other problems. Um, the gentleman who had his court case today, that was famous for when it's a more money, more problems. More cattle, more problems. More servants, more problems. You just got it going on in abundance. Father's been faithful to his promise, and you've really been blessed. And he's blessed those that bless you, and he deal with those that deal with you in the wrong way. And everywhere you go, you're going to be blessed. And so Abraham has been blessed mightily, with substance. Yes, he's been blessed spiritually. He's got a child. He's all of those things, but he's also got some stuff. And so here the section we're about to read is going to get into a treaty that they make so that they're able to peacefully coexist. Genesis 22, we'll continue reading. It says, "And it came to pass at that time that Abimelech," and remember we read that one, was that name meant, was it brother of the father, or my brother the king, something along that. Yes, father of the king, brother of the king. And it says, "And it came to pass at that time that Abimelech and Phicol, the chief captain of his host, spake unto Abraham, saying, Elohim is with thee in all that thou doest." So the blessings are evident already. "Now therefore, swear unto me hereby, Elohim, that thou wilt not deal falsely with me, nor with my son, nor with my son's son, but according to the kindness that I have done unto thee, thou shalt do unto me, and to the land wherein thou hast sojourned." And it's really good that they made these arrangements because, as he said, um, I just want to make sure that, you dealt fairly with me, but once I'm gone, I want to make sure that, that you don't bring harm to my sons. And so this treaty that they were about to put in place, it solidifies some things so that people are not, I don't want to have to assume that we're good. Let's get it confirmed that we are good and set some boundaries here. It says, and Abraham said, I will swear. And Abraham reproved Abimelech because of a well of water which Abimelech's servants had violently taken away. And Abimelech said, I wot not who had done this thing, neither didst thou tell me, neither yet heard I of it, but today. Look, I'm just hearing about it. I didn't know that my people were out here bothering your people. Because I told you to be out here and live in peace, dwell in peace. I had no idea. It says, and Abraham took sheep and oxen and gave them unto Abimelech, and both of them made a covenant. And Abraham set 7 ewe lambs of the flock by themselves. And Abimelech said unto Abraham, what mean these 7 ewe lambs which thou hast set by themselves? And he said, for these 7 ewe lambs shalt thou take of my hand, that they be a witness unto me that I have digged this well. Wherefore he called that place Beersheba, because there they swear both of them. We say Beersheba, you know. And grow it up, we read that as Beersheba, and guess what? It can be Beersheba. Um, but the word Beersheba, um, it's the well of the sevenfold oath. And so we see this location mentioned a few times in some Old Covenant stories. It's not mentioned in the New Testament, but it is mentioned in the Old Covenant. And here is where, in our next chapter, when we still look at the sacrifice of Yitzchak, the Beersheba is mentioned there. Later on, Isaac and Abimelech are going to have conflict over water rights, and so this treaty that they make today, this covenant that they make today, becomes again a topic of conversation. Jacob's journey to Egypt. Jacob and his family stopped in Beersheba on their way to Egypt. And then, of course, we just read about Hagar and Ishmael and their journeys in Beersheba. And I really was interested in, like, this is the place where I would normally take a gander and just kind of just look over to get some information on the city, just to see if there's anything relevant that I would look up. And of course, we found that Beersheba is the largest city in the Negev Desert of southern Israel. It's often referred to as the capital of the Negev. It's mentioned in, like, when they're talking about the extent of land that belonged to Israel, and we find that it was, from Dan to Beersheba. It's originally a part of the land that's assigned to the tribe of Judah, but according to some sources, it was later reassigned to Shimeon. There's the city itself, is still in existence. It's one of the major metropolitan areas um, that is out there. But that city, Beersheba, gets its name because it's the well, the air, and Sheba, 7. And so it's the well of sevenfold oath. Remember, he set out those 7 ewe lambs as the marker, the reminder that I've made an oath to you, not just with one, but here 7 times over. We made this oath. We know, so that we know for certain. We know that we know that we know that I dig this well. This is mine. This isn't something of yours that I took or happened to find. This is mine. And so verse 32 says, thus they made a covenant at Beersheba. Then Abimelech rose up, and Phicol, the chief captain of his host, and they returned into the land of the Philistines. And so we're getting some uh, ethnicity here. These were Philistines. And Abraham planted a grove in Beersheba and called there on the name of Elohim, the everlasting Elohim. And Abraham sojourned in the Philistines' land many days. And so I do believe that, yes, it is. And so this is um the very last um very last chapter of this particular very last verses in this chapter. As you know, we will be picking up tomorrow in 22. And I hope that there were some things that you heard as we were reading that maybe trigger some thoughts for you, some things that you can be thinking on as you're preparing for your evening tonight, as you go into your day tomorrow. Remembering that we talked about, Elohim hearing the cry of a child when they were in need, and understanding that there's a move that the Father makes, and He steps into their situation, and He speaks a word of encouragement to her, and knowing that sometimes it's possible to be so overwhelmed by what we're going through, so overwhelmed by the challenges that we're facing, that we don't even think that, like, just look, and there's a well of water, and it was not just an abandoned well. It was actually a source of water that sustained them. And so sometimes we want to make sure we're checking when we're going through, because you're going to go through things in life. That's just that's life. Life be life. And my brother Tony D has a podcast that they air on Wednesday nights, I believe. Yes, they're on Wednesday nights. Life be life. And it does. Life is going to life. You're going to have some situations, but don't allow what you're going through to so cloud your vision that you can't see the way that's made just a little bit down the way. Right within eye shot. Deliverance was right there. There was a well of water. And so I want to encourage you, if you're going through situations and circumstances, don't allow them to become such a heavy weight for you. Remember, we read it the other day where the Lord tells us to take his yoke upon us, for his burden is easy and his yoke is light. Yoke is easy and his burden is light. Don't take those heavy burdens on yourself. Now, I'm not a Jesus gonna fix it, and you don't have to do anything. No, do the things that you need to do, but trust that there is a change coming. Trust if you don't give up. Trust if you don't go weary. Trust if you don't let go, that all will be well. You don't have to give up. You don't have to stop believing. You don't have to stop trusting. Just a little while longer, you can continue to endure. But that's why I, you see one of the tricks that happens is when you start to go through, depending on what it is you're going through, isolation will become your remedy, and sometimes that isolation isn't good, because that isolation, it limits your perspective. And I'm not saying you're going through, let everybody know your business. No, when you're going through, make sure that you're bringing the Lord, and you're inviting His wisdom in to whatever situation it is that you're dealing with. But don't allow it to become such heavy weight for you that you can't see your way through, that you can't see that deliverance is going to come, even if you don't see how it's going to work out. Know that because you placed your faith in Him, and you're obeying His word, and you're doing the things that you're responsible for doing, you're handling your responsibilities. And the Father, He's going to take care of this. And your way will be made. It may be difficult. It may be a long road. It may be a hard road. It may be an unpleasant remedy, but He's going to bring you through it. Don't give up. Don't lose hope. Don't lose hope. She laid her baby under a bush and went off for a little distance because she didn't want to sit there and watch him die. They were losing hope. They were giving up. She was giving up. But the Father heard the cry of that child, because her heart was for her child. Her concern was for her child. On her own, she could make it probably. She could continue to wander on, but her child, she was concerned for. And the scriptures tell us the Father heard her child's cry, and He made a way for them. So don't allow burdens and issues and problems and going through to become the center of everything for your life. The uh, Father has an answer. Just don't give up. He's got an answer. So then we move on, and we saw Abraham and Abimelech and the treaty that they made. And before I leave this place tonight, one of the things that I want to put in your hearing is Abraham wasn't afraid to have the difficult conversation. And many times in personal relationships, family relationships, church relationships, every relationship, there are going to become times when you have to have difficult conversations. The beauty of having a difficult conversation out is you get things on the table that need to be talked about, things that need to be discussed. But don't you know that's how bitterness sets in when you don't unburden your heart with the things that are concerning you in relationship? When you don't have that safe place where you can share and feel like you've been heard and feel like you've been respected. That's where bitterness comes in, is when we just eat it and take it and take it and take it and take it. And then eventually there's an explosion that happens because so much pressure has been applied. This could have turned into war, but Abraham didn't shy away from having that conversation, and they were able to make a treaty. And he wasn't afraid to even like give more in the treaty than would even normally be necessary. That's how we ended up with that name. Remember, Beersheba, because of those 7 ewe lambs that he gave as sort of a marker of the covenant that they were making. So don't be afraid to have difficult conversations. Sometimes it's the last thing you want to do, because who likes confusion? Well, guess what? It won't be confusion if you work through it. Right now, if it's in your heart, if it's troubling your heart, the confusion is only impacting you. And I'm not saying share the wealth. If I'm confused, if I got trouble, everybody's gonna have trouble. No, 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 no. Seek peace, as it depends on you, as much as it depends on you, as much as it's possible. Walk in peace with all men. And so sometimes that's going to mean having some conversations out. But what that does then is it allows you to be able to peacefully dwell in what God has blessed you with. It allows you to be able to peacefully inhabit the marriage that He gave you, because you all don't have hidden strife and confusion. It allows you to enjoy the friendship because you don't feel used and abused, because maybe you feel like it's one sided. And no, have the conversation. Don't allow your heart to be broken. Get that stuff off of you. Be unburdened in the name of Jesus. So we have finished out Genesis 21. Tomorrow we're going to slide on over into Genesis 22, and we see the sacrifice of Isaac, or at least the story of the sacrifice of Isaac. And I know those of you who already know the story, he is sacrificing in his heart. That boy was good as dead. But he also knew there had to be a way. And so we're going to read through that story tomorrow, if Yahuwah permits, if we are, should the Lord tarry, as the old folk used to say. We'll gather together here again tomorrow for Genesis 22. So you have a peaceful evening. I'm going to be up for a little bit, trying to make sure that we're ready for in the morning. And I will talk to you later. Bye-bye.